All right. Well, unless any of you else want to sponsor some minis, and so Trust of Flum, thank you for doing so. Why don't we take a peek at fighters? Matt, if you could only play one class or class archetype in 5e forever, which would you pick? Jeez. That's a tough one. Probably Cleric. As for which kind? Maybe, I don't know, maybe a life cleric. You know, it's solid, bread and butter. Everyone can use a life cleric. You know, you can hit stuff in melee combat. You provide some support. You can cast some offensive spells. You know, you're someone that others can, you know, at least be more likely to rely upon. So probably something kind of bread and butter like that. I do tend to play healers. In Final Fantasy XIV, my main class, or my main job, is White Mage. So I think that works. Misfit says, Bard for life. Where are you Bard from, Misfit? Probably best not to answer that, especially if you're a Bard that gets barred. All right, so we have the basic concept of a fighter as is presented in the player's handbook. And look, it does so in half of one page. I mean, really, it's probably more like a third if you look at all the art and everything. As we continue the deep dive into Morgrave Miscellany, I want to stress how much I love it makes you question the nature of the class. And it gets you thinking, well, a fighter isn't just a big dumb lug that uses a sword and a shield. Because fighters can be really good bowmen in 5th ed. Fighters can be Eldritch Knights, and so they get a splash of magic. And considering all of the ability score improvements they get along the way, which, by the way, some sort of a fighter might be a close second, Josh, because you do get some of that stuff. It might be Eldritch Knight instead of Cleric. So yes, in this supplement, not only do you get a bunch of Eberron lore, and it refers to the geography, so there's the maps and things that you can find in the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. If my PDF will, there we go. Right, so in the back, there's all kinds of, there's some maps, map of the world, lots of iconography, good lore stuff, right? The dragon marked houses. Here's a nice glossary of terms. So this is going to take you deeper into Eberron, but there's a part that says, just question, what is the nature of this? And so let's see what it brings up regarding fighters. Blade, bow, and bone. At the end of the 9th century, Galifar was a single united kingdom. Decades of civil war drove each nation to develop unique military strategies and forces that harnessed national traditions and resources. In this unit, we study some of the exotic traditions of the elite soldiers of the 5 nations, from the Bone Knight to the Silver Bow. And so here we have, remember, this is presented as a coursework to everyone. Like, this is a university study that we're taking. So we're now in our class MA, which is probably like military arts or martial arts in a way. A fighter is more than just adept with arms and armament. With a second wind of determination, willpower, or sheer physical stamina, a natural-born fighter takes decisive action beyond the limits of normal soldiers. When others would falter, the indomitable spirit to champion of revolution or act as a bulwark of the weak is what ultimately defines a fighter. The Last War is, which should probably be capitalized because I think it's capitalized elsewhere. I'm finding a couple little, I don't know, grammatical, it's nothing major. What I'm really focused on is there's something that seems to be mechanically for good or bad. But this is gonna bring us into the mindset of a fighter in Eberron, because Eberron isn't just a way to introduce extra splat content. It's a way to really get into this theme, or in this world's themes, this neo-noir, this pulp storytelling, swashbuckling, high stakes, high risk, high reward adventures kind of a thing. You know, things are shades of gray. It's not always just a clear cut, yeah, I'm the bad guy, you'll never defeat me, I'll force the princess to marry me. And then, you know, oh, you nefarious cad, I'll get you. This is more like, you know, people are press ganged into doing horrendous things. So they're not bad people, but they do bad things for bad people. And so it's really up to the players to stand up and make these decisions, even if they're tough. So this is going through some of the different backgrounds, you know, the considerations here. Though a logical background choice, you don't have to have been a soldier or mercenary just because you fought in the last war. See, there and there. Outlander could suffice for a former scout. A deserter might be considered a charlatan or a criminal. However, the military benefit of the soldier background is your military rank and service, and it means that you served with such distinction that your former comrades still honor your service. I love how this is making these backgrounds come alive and saying, you know, take this background and here's a more defined benefit. This is how it fits into Eberron. Which, of course, you can always then extrapolate, scrub up a little bit, and just insert into your own homebrew campaign. If you do follow the soldier background, first identify the nation you served, and perhaps all the way down to the type of unit. A glorious victory you enjoyed, and several defeats you suffered. See, these are wonderful prompts to think about your character. More than just, well, I have proficiency in intimidation and athletics. You do, comma, but there's more to a soldier than just that. So it gets into the lore. I'm not gonna read everything that's in here, especially if it comes to the fluff, because I want you to read it, because it's going to mean more to you if you get this document, because it's going to resonate with you as the setting, or it's going to resonate with you as a DM, as a creator, or even as a player, and say, yeah, I get where this is coming from, but I'm going to replace being a siren soldier in being a soldier of Garbledygook, because that's the country that apparently you're from. No one could pronounce its name, so everyone calls it Garbledygook, even though it's not spelled anything like it. But no one can. You see the storytelling that just happened? We just created a name, or a nation, that has an ancient name that nobody can pronounce, but everyone still at least writes out the symbols. It might not even be in common, but everyone knows what the city name looks like. And so people just call the city Garbledygook, even though that's not the name of the city, because that's what the name looks like, but no one's changed the name of the city. But they all can write in whatever the script looks like, even though it's not a language anyone speaks. Ta-da! Do you see how spontaneous storytelling can be? When you're offered a couple prompts, if you're open-minded to the slight challenge of creating something, it just happens, it just flows. Josh, the NES nerd, says, one thing I like about fighters and rogues as well is that it is a great class for people in their first few campaigns. The base version of the class doesn't have a lot of stuff to pay attention to, doesn't have a lot of stuff for you to remember to keep doing, such as raging for the barbarians. Yes, Josh, fighter is an awesome bread and butter class. And rogues, to an extent, you're more specialized, because you have a lot more skills. Like, I think that's why fighter is sort of the de facto, this is your first class. Because not that it's not interesting, but you do primarily swing a sword, shoot a bow. You have things that you can do, but it's sort of one at a time, instead of options that you can spread out into a couple different actions on a turn, and so forth and so on. No matter which background you choose, if you've decided to link yourself to military service, you should consider what you did to earn such respect, why you left, and what horrors you experienced. Did you leave voluntarily? Did political positioning cause your nation to discharge you for killing an enemy aristocrat, or are you celebrated for it? Were you severely injured in a courageous act and released from your service for an extended recovery? Have you been discharged on an important mission for a general, or are you just simply on leave? The final thing to establish when taking the soldier background is your military rank and the confidence that carries sway. So it's getting back to there, but these are excellent questions. The background of soldier, if you take it, will prompt a little bit of this, but never be afraid of going outside the personality, the two personality traits, the ideal, the bond, and the flaw that a background offers you. Ask yourself these questions. As a cleric, up above, it was an amazing thing what they brought up. What was your first miracle? What was your first channeling of divine power? How did it change you? You know, do you have to be in service of a god? Can you be in service of a pantheon? Can you just have an ideal that you pursue and that makes you a conduit for positive energy that you then bless other people with in a non-denominational kind of way? That's where I'm really digging a ton of content in this supplement. I have to get going. I hope you have a good night. Emmy, thank you for hanging out with us and for virtually eating a cookie with me. Your thing on the subject of some prompts allowing improvised lore and story stuff to flow, I recommend when you get the chance to check out that tweet I linked a while ago. I'll open it in a side menu here, and then I can come back to it here when I have the opportunity to do so. Thank you, Josh. Alright, martial archetypes reflect specialized training and styles of combat. Champion and Battlemaster are flexible archetypes that have a place in any culture, but there are other archetypes that have a narrow focus and more closely reflect the martial conditions of a particular culture. That is a good reminder that what we're looking at is Eberron focused subclasses, which this PDF does remind you are invoking the old prestige classes from 3rd edition. So they tend to be like very specialized. The Bard was an excellent example of that in the ones that we've covered so far. Alright, optional rule, the Silver Bow. The Silver Bow is an optional variant of the Arcane Archer martial archetype, drawing on the divine power of the Silver Flame. If you use this variant, replace the Arcane Archer lore feature with Silver Bow lore, and add Radiant Arrow to the list of options for Arcane Shot. Silver Bow lore. At 3rd level, you are trained in the rituals and lore of the Silver Flame. You choose to gain proficiency in either the history or religion skill, and learn the Thaumaturgy cantrip. Radiant Arrow. You infuse your arrow with the light of the Silver Flame. The creature hit by the arrow takes an extra 2d6 radiant damage, and it must succeed on a Constitution saving throw or be stunned until the end of your next turn. The radiant damage increases to 4d6 when you reach 18th level in this class. The damage is increased by 1d6 if the target is undead to a maximum of 5d6. I'll have to check out where you would get Radiant Arrow that in lieu of Arcane Shot, or if one of you knows, because the ability to stun a creature until the end of your next turn, the ability to stun a creature like that is very powerful. So if any of you have that off the top of your head, I'd like to know what level, because Arcane Archer, that I haven't ever played one, so I don't have that information in the front of my mind. Alright, lots of background lore. Things to think about for Eberron, things to think about for your own campaign world. You know, do you want an equivalent of Brayland style soldiers? That's fine. The phrase "there's nothing new under the sun" comes out of a very old tome itself, if you know where the origins of that is, and It's fine if you see ideas, because you know what? The King's Shields, while it's printed in a PDF that carries a D&D watermark, is this concept truly, you know, original and unique to Eberron? Could this have been drawn from another work of fiction? Could this have been drawn from history? And could this tactic then have been copied from, you know, we might say, oh yes, it's Roman phalanx technique or whatever. Where did they get that technique? They could have originated it, or things like pasta and noodles could have been borrowed from another country, yet are tagged predominantly with a culture that is more familiar to us that grew it. So I will ask you, you know, look, if you're going to get this, I want to leave something for you to read and enjoy. So consider all of this lore. And because this is also going to describe, if you're unsure as a DM, I don't know, these silver bows seem kind of powerful. Read about the silver bows. Read about the culture, and then you can tell your player who wants to play a silver bow, you know what, I'm more comfortable with you playing a silver bow in the context of XYZ. And so maybe if you view this as an increase of power, that increase of power isn't just in a vacuum, but there is some kind of an overarching responsibility for the use of the power, if that makes sense. As a fighter, you're a fierce combatant, but you don't have to be a soldier, and you might not have fought in the last war. Here's a few additional ideas for fighters in Eberron, or even your own campaign setting. Are you an enforcer, right? You work for an organized crime. You know, you're the one who goes and collects the insurance money. You know, so this is criminal background enforcer, something along those lines. You could be a battle master, gives you a few dirty tricks, disarming attack, menacing attack, trip attack. You know, be a mob enforcer. A fallen paladin. You were once a truly devout champion of light, perhaps a Templar of the Silver Flame, or a paladin of Dol Ara. But your faith was shattered by something you saw or did during Sword and... What? Am I missing something? During the last war. It continues down here, then comes up here. Perhaps it was simply the relentless cruelty and suffering you witnessed, a daily massacre of the morning itself. Whatever it was broke your faith so completely that you turned away to the divine and never looked back. Something like this, you know, this is Eberron flair. A fallen paladin doesn't have to be an oath breaker, right? You're still pledging an oath and you're still drawing power from something. This could just be, you know what? I lost my powers a long time ago, and I've had to learn to live on my own without them. The War Machine. A Warforged fighter is a living weapon, literally made for battle. Legacy weapon. No one becomes a fighter overnight. Many seem to carry it, no one becomes a fighter overnight. Many seem carry to on a... so that's another kind of a little oopsie-doodle, I guess. Many seem carry to on a family tradition learned from a parent or wise mentor, and further honed during years of military service. Perhaps you weren't a protege, but a prodigy, feeling the length of a blade or the weight of armor as an extension of your own body, and the drive to innovate where the teaching of others lulls them into predictable patterns and predictable flaws. So, if you want to have this as, you know, you grew up and you were taught by your noble family's sergeant-at-arms, or man-at-arms. Let's roll a d8. You know, we're going to do like a pretend, a quick concept mock-up here. So, if we're creating a character, random character generator, oh, okay, blah-da-da-da, and now it's time for this. Here's a fun storytelling prompt. We rolled a 4. You received the weapon when you joined the army and carried it through the war. So here our fighter is very much attached to this weapon. It could be a superstitious attachment. It could just be a coping mechanism. It could be, I don't feel safe without this weapon, as a form of paranoia or some sort of like post-traumatic stress. It could just be, I'm ever vigilant, right? This is good character building prompts. Or these are good character building prompts. Protege and prodigy are the same word in 2 different languages. And interesting, hey, GM Vault. And interesting then how in English, because English is such an interesting language itself, you know, a protege is more of the, I'm studying under a mentor, and I am, and, you know, I'm the best student, right? I'm the one who's going to inherit the dojo kind of a thing. And yet prodigy is, not that you don't have a mentor, but you're more independent. I'm doing it on my own. I'm a natural. And so it's fun to see how these words play and intermix and have different concepts in various languages, including our own. Switzerland, I think, lets you keep your military rifle once you leave service. Yes, I believe so, King. Switzerland and maybe a couple other countries have mandatory military service for young folks. And then after you've been trained on your rifle and you've done 2 or 3 years of service in the military, you are sort of released back into private life, and you get to keep the gun on which you trained. Diadems, you have an entire list of nicknames that GM Vault has been invoking for you here. All right, looky. One of the 2 subclasses for fighter is a Bone Knight. Some countries it's a choice between mandatory service or community service, one or the other. Yep, I can believe that. You can choose to be in the military, you can choose to join a civic group, you know, kind of picking up litter on the highway, or, you know, teaching, you know, going into teaching or some sort of something like that, yeah. To a Karn, the undead are weapons, and a Bone Knight walks the line between life and death, training night and day to wield the Ivory Legions, as they see fit. Bone Knights wield the power of necromancy and can grow armor and weapons from their own bones. Beyond this, there is an intuitive connection to the undead. Initially, this allows you to command a single undead soldier and arm yourself for battle from within. As your power grows, you can direct a legion of the dead, turning these mindless creatures into an effective fighting force. Most Bone Knights served Karnath in the last war, fighting as part of the Emerald Claw or the Ebon Skull. However, the champions of the Blood of Vol have practiced these traditions for centuries and learned these skills through this faith. Whether your bonecraft was earned through devotion to faith or your own design, decide whether this is something you sought or a disturbing means to an end. And so here we get as our subclass to fighter. Remember, so here's our base fighter, and this is what all fighters are getting as per their class. Now, for subclasses, here we go. Fighter level 3rd, 7, 10, 15, 18. And as you can see, 3, 7, 10, 15, and where's our... Oh, I think 18th might be the... Yeah, martial archetype feature. And in that case, that was just folded into a bonus that was on something already. So here we get spellcasting and Ivory Legionnaire. When you reach 3rd level, you augment your martial prowess with the ability to cast spells. See spells rules for the general rules of spellcasting and the spells listing for the Cleric spell list. Aha, good to note. So we're going to be going off the Cleric spell list. The spells you learn at 8th, 14th, and 20th level can come from any school of magic. Whenever you gain a level in this class, you can replace one of the Cleric spells you know with another spell of your choice from the Cleric spell list. The new spell must be of a level for which you have spell slots, and it must be a necromancy or transmutation spell, unless you're replacing the spell you gained at 3rd, 8th, 14th, or 20th level. Wisdom is your spell. So instead of Eldritch Knight going Int, because this is based on Cleric, we're going Wisdom. So we're going to get cantrips. There is no compelling cantrip like a mage hand for a... by the way, this is a 1/3 caster. So at 20th level, you'll get 1/4 level spell. So this is like Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster. You learn 2 cantrips of your choice from the Cleric spell list. So unlike Arcane Trickster, we're not compelled to get a particular one. The Bone Knight spellcasting table shows how many spell slots you have to cast your spells at first level and higher. To cast one of these spells, you must expend a slot of the spell's level or higher. Okay, that makes sense. Spells known. You know 3 first level Cleric spells of your choice. Here's the qualifier. 2 of which you must choose from the Necromancy and Transmutation spells on the Cleric list. I wonder if they meant and or if this means you have to get 1 Necromancy and you have to have at least 1 Necromancy and you have to have at least 1 Transmutation. So it's either a typo or it's forcing you to make sure that you have one or the other. The spells known column of the Bone Knight spellcasting table shows when you learn more Cleric spells at first level or higher. Each of these spells must be a Necromancy or Transmute. Okay, so it looks like going on. It's making sure that it's forcing the split between the two. Must be Necromancy or Transmutation of your choice, and must be of a level for which you have spell slots. That makes sense. All right. Ivory Legionnaire. At 3rd level, you gain the aid of an undead warhorse skeleton to ride into battle. You also gain a skeleton protector that accompanies you on your conquest. It acts on your initiative and obeys your commands in battle. Add your proficiency bonus to its attack rolls and damage rolls, as well as any saving throws it is proficient in, and it gains hit points equal to your fighter level. If your mount or protector dies, you can spend 1 hour to reanimate each corpse, which you can do over the course of a short rest. At 10th level, your skeleton protector becomes a dread warrior. Ooh. Cool. Oh, Deedums, yeah, you've been, I had to get a blood test a little while ago. Fortunately, my doctor has a very good vampire on staff, and anytime they have to do blood work, even if it's just for a yearly checkup, right? Just to check your fluids, the level of your oil and your antifreeze and whatever in your blood. Painless. Oh my gosh, this person is an expert. In, out, draws done. No bruising or anything. Now, that could just be for me because maybe I have fantastic vein specimens, but I'm fortunate to have an expert vampire on staff. I like the idea of a year or 2 mandatory service. You get your body used to regular exercise. You learn survival skills and other important skills. Yeah. Oh, your blinker fluid's getting low? Yep. It's probably time to rotate your headlights, too. I like this because it's making sure that paladins aren't the only class that is... I mean, not that you can't buy a horse. Anyone could buy a horse, but paladins have this special bond. It's a magical horse that is even, from the basic concept, it is a more important horse or a more special mount than a phantom steed. Now, Gandalf has Shadowfax. You can have a wizard that casts Phantom Steed and loves this horse. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. This, though, is baked into the subclass, but it's baked into the character, and I really like it, especially if you do want to play something like a fallen paladin. The hesitation that can come with that, especially if you have a mount and you have a skeleton with you, is we start getting into the old Diablo 2 bottleneck of being a lagromancer, right? You have so many stuff on the table that you have to take certain actions and split all this. Now we have more combatants and more things to track. So if someone is going to play a character like this, you have to really be on your game with your actions and with what you want your horse and or your skeleton protector to do. And also because you are going to be able to, you know, raise dead and do all this other stuff to create, you know, or to use these other powers to summon or transform. This is going to take some knowledge and some dedication to the player to make sure that they are not being the one hogging the time at the table. I have mixed feels about this stuff. Like most of Eberron, I feel like it's not compatible with 5e outside of Eberron, as it's really huge, a gargantuan step of power creep. That having a skeleton horse going into battle, or having the protector. I mean, a skeleton, a skeleton has what, 14 hit points or something? Hang on, I could be wildly wrong. I could be absolutely wildly wrong. $13 hit points. So by the time that it comes into play, it would have 16 hit points because you would be a 3rd level fighter. Don't tell anyone. All right, it's our secret GM vault. I'm personally of the feel that summons are pretty busted in 5e. I think they can be, and you know, if you take spells like animate objects, and Fluffy Sheep actually pointed this out a while ago. Animate objects, if you take the tiny ones, have such high damage potential, and it's just that much more stuff coming out. You know, so summons and whatnot, you know, you had the whole thing where you could summon, like, what, 5 pixies, and every pixie could cast transmutation. And so one spell gives you 5 transmutations that are most likely going to hit and transform something. Anything that takes the focus off you in a fight is pretty OP. Even if they did no damage at all, they're meat shields. That's a hit not landing on a PC. So I guess that means we could look at the skeleton acting as temporary hit points, in a way. But as a fighter, I mean, you should have a decent pool of hit points already. Although that could be kind of fun if thematically, obviously this doesn't account for that. But if you say, you know, you made this contract from below, and you know, your health became shattered in exchange for these necromantic powers, and so actually Khan was your dump as a fighter, but you got this skeleton. Or maybe as a DM, that's what you say. Look, the skeleton takes hits off of you. I'm willing to let you play this in our homebrew, or in Faerun, or in Dragon Heist, or whatever. Speaking of which, this Sunday is Dragon Heist, as presented by Trustaflump. And so if someone, you know, if you said, well, look, so just make Khan an 8 or a 10, and I'll let you take the Ivory Legionnaire, that might be an exchange. I definitely think that this is meant to be contained within Eberron for consideration outside, and why there's so much fluff describing the mechanics that we're seeing, that it's a little bit disingenuous if we just strip the mechanics out and say this is equivalent in all worlds. It's actually, you know what, Flumph, you all did something similar with the Ravnica content, where, if I recall correctly, you said things like centaurs and the you know, the minotaurs and all this. Those are races you're willing to have run in D&D time, but the backgrounds are super specialized for Ravnica, and the fact that you get all these extra guild spells, like that's for Ravnica, because everyone in Ravnica, it equalizes it because everyone has access to it. Whereas maybe in Faerun, not everyone has access to a guild that just gives them a bunch of spells. Yeah, I completely agree. As I mentioned before, this is fine for Eberron. After all, the Warforged idea kind of set the tone for Eberron is OP. Oh, your Eberron Artificer that had, what, like a 22 AC? What level were you playing in that adventure too, by the way, Trust a Flump? Which is fine, just not going to be compatible so much. Yeah, so it's a lot of conversation with your DM, and your DM might just say, yeah, you know what, I don't care, run it. I'll scale up, I trust in myself. Or you might have a DM say, you know what, looking at it, these are hits that you're not taking, these are hit points that are effectively floating by your side, and that you can renew in a short rest. So I'll make you a deal. Take an 8 con or 10 con, and I will let you play this subclass, because I think that will equal out what the Ivory Legionnaire offers. Now in Eberron, if people are staying contained to just what is in Eberron, there could be, you know, 2 or 3 these fighters on a team. Or you know that they just exist out there in the world and everyone else knows that they exist. There's a common knowledge of what these people do. And so in the meta, I guess, interestingly enough, in the in-game meta, the in-character meta, people are aware of these soldiers and how to counter them, what they represent, how they act. And that knowledge can take the edge off of the raw mechanics. But when you draw the raw mechanics and place it into a homebrew setting, or into, you know, for Bone Knight, I don't know, this actually might be kind of cool in Dark Sun. Could be cool in Ravenloft. In Forgotten Realms, it might be kind of busted. You know, because it's more the generic Western European fantasy setting. You know, something like this could exist, but as the exception. But if an exception exists as a PC, that can cause an overall balancing issue then. Because the NPCs and the enemies then are the ones at the information disadvantage, when traditionally, doesn't have to be, but traditionally, the players are at the information disadvantage, because that's the compelling motivator to continue on in the story. It was 10 or 11. Warforged is broken as heck with or without the Artificer. Yeah, when Pete swung on you and he said, do I hit a 27? And you said no, just so casually, and also in your robot voice. Like the look on his face, like I don't know if you went back to watch the VOD, Trustaflumph, but if you look at the expression on Pete's face when, I guess at level 10, you had you went Neo from the Matrix and you just went no. Oh, it was already 27 and it would go up to 32. Oh my good golly gracious. Bonecraft at level 7. Oh, actually, real quick, before we move on. So, a champion at 3rd level. A champion gets increased critical, and that's what you get. A battle master is going to get some maneuvers and proficiency with an artisan tool. Pretty cool. And the arcane, or the Eldritch Knight, does get spell casting. In fact, there shouldn't really be a difference. 2, 3, 2, 3, 13, 4, 3, 3, 1. Yeah, this is a traditional 1/3 caster chart. But this is based on intelligence, and it has similar rules with intelligence and wizard versus wisdom and cleric. And the restrictions. 2 of you must choose from abjuration and evocation. So yeah, this was the same. This is just a different kind of Eldritch Knight. And you also get weapon bond. You can't be disarmed. So instead of that, instead of always getting these bonded weapons. And I suppose then with the spells, and if they have to be abjuration and evocation, it's making you more offensive and defensive from these schools. Because you're taking necromancy, which might be offensive, but if you're also swinging a sword prodigiously, it's really a choice. Do I want to cast a spell, or can I just swing my sword and be more efficient? And I suppose to make up then for the loss of defensive magic or very overpowered, not overpowered, but very aggressive evocation spells with, you know, medium aggressive necromancy spells. And transmutation, I guess that's where the Warhorse, like, there's thematic reasons, but I suppose that getting the extra hit points from the Skeleton Protector might help make up for the hit points you would have not lost with abjuration spells. I don't know. I can't really do the mental math in an efficient manner up here, but for non-thematic reasons, of course, this could be 100% thematic, but for non-thematic reasons, maybe the Warhorse Skeleton and the Skeleton Protector are to make up for the difference in power or abilities between the schools of abjuration and evocation versus necromancy and transmutation. AC ain't the only way to defeat a PC, though. Oh yeah, there is. It's you know, it could be an intelligence save, a charisma save, a constitution save. There's so many different points of entry to get to the soft, squishy flesh of an adventurer. You're absolutely correct, GM Vault. All right, at level 7, your spiritual connection with the composition of the Undead Legion bestows your body with the gift to grow weapons and armor from within you to enhance your martial prowess on the battlefield. The first time you create your armor or your weapon, you can expend a spell slot of first level or higher to increase their effectiveness of either one of your armaments. When you do so, until the end of your next long rest or until you die, the armor or weapons you create with this feature become magic items, granting a +1 bonus to AC if it's armor, or a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls if it's a weapon. The bonus the item gains is equal to the level of the spell slot you spent when you created it for the first time. So looking at the scaling, I mean, we can just reference back to the Eldritch Knight chart here. So it'll be a +1 until 7th level, at which point it'd be a +2, a +3 at 13th, and ultimately a +4 at 19th. I don't think that's necessarily breaking. If you do play with magic items, and that is something else to keep in mind. 5th edition was not based on the presumption that magic items exist like 4th edition does. With the magic items or the, what was the name of the term? Intrinsic, no, not intrinsic. Oh yeah, it was intrinsic bonuses, I think. So your character just grows stronger without needing the ring and the neck slot and the head slot and all this other stuff. So this can, over time, make you more aggressive and defensive, I suppose. Ultimately, will it break? Well, by the time you're 19th level, you could arguably be finding artifacts that could go above and beyond. Though, you know, a +3 is kind of like that's the end game in 5th edition. That's, you have a +3 weapon? Ooh, lordy, watch out. Meanwhile, in, you know, in 3rd edition, or even to an extent 4th edition, the flump has returned. So, I don't think this is necessarily that bad. You know, could it be balancing, especially if you have then the Protector and the Horse and heavy armor? You can use your action to encase yourself in a suit of segmented Bonecraft armor. When you do, your armor class becomes 10 plus con mod plus proficiency. While your Bonecraft armor envelops you, you can't benefit from wearing armor, but if you're using a shield, you can apply the shield's bonus as normal. You remain protected in this way until you absorb the armor, no action required, or you die. Or a Bonecraft weapon. You can use your bonus action to graft a weapon of hardened bone from your body in your empty hand. You can choose the form the weapon takes each time you grow it. Your Bonecraft weapon becomes brittle and breaks if it is more than 5 feet away from you for 1 minute or more. It also crumbles to dust if you use this feature again. If you absorb the weapon, no action required, or if you die. So that's getting a little bit into the weapon bond that you get at level 3. But here you're getting at level 7 with some different options. Tenth level, Master of the Ivory Banner. Beginning at 10th level, when you use your second wind feature, you add your proficiency bonus to the hit points you regain, and your undead allies within 60 feet of you gain temporary hit points equal to the total number you regain. Now, I suppose that wouldn't stack with, no, that wouldn't stack with the, that charisma. It would stack with that charisma feat to grant allies temporary hit points. Well, no, it would. Well, it wouldn't stack, but you could use that to buff all your skellies. And then after they take some damage, because if you're using second wind, something's happened already. Then you could just go and give out a bunch more temps to your skellies. And by this level 2, I think this is presuming that you have been able to amass, more than just your mount and your skeleton companion that follows you, which again can become a bottleneck on the campaign. So if you want to explore this, please do so responsibly at the table so you're not hogging time. Deathstrike. Actually, hang on. How does this? Eldritch Strike, which is you learn how to make your weapon strikes undercut a creature's resistance to your spells. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, that creature is disadvantaged on the next saving throw it makes against the spell you cast before the end of your next turn. Comparing this, superiority dice to d10s. And at 10th level, you choose a second option from the fighting style. I don't know. I'd say it's on par with the one little, like, the tweak that fighters get at 10th level, or the fighter subclasses get at 10th level. Deathstrike the Death. Starting at 15th level, when you hit a creature with a melee or ranged attack using your Bonecraft weapon, you can expend one spell slot to cause the weapon to deal 1d10 extra damage to the target. This damage increases by 1d10 for each spell level higher than first, to a maximum of 4d10. The damage increases by 1d10 if the target is undead. Interesting, because you could play an archer fighter. A bone knight that is an archer as well. I'm that hum isn't like, oh, that's broken. It's just, I guess I'm so in the mode, and I gotta break out of this, that fighters are traditionally melee combatants. But as they have this 1/3 caster class, as well as the fact that they can make prodigious archers, that's something to consider if you want to make a ranged skelly fighter. Inspiring Leader, that's the one, Trustaflumph. Thank you. So yeah, if you take Inspiring Leader, if you have that one odd statistic, just keep Charisma at 13, and there you go. Because, you need strength for your weapons and you need wisdom for your spells. So if you want to just put 13 at charisma and then take that feat, if your DM allows it, you're providing even more temps for all of your skeletons. So I don't think this is necessarily... I mean, this is a Paladin Smite that you don't get till 15th level that... it's not bad. It'll never be as good as a Paladin Smite, but also you can use this on arrows, which is cool. I don't necessarily have a problem with this Deathstrike. And then at level 18, Grim Conscription. At 18th level, remember we're in epic levels by this point, you prowess, so there we go. If anyone out there from the Eberron dev team is watching, we are pointing out little things that we're finding along the way. At 18th level, you prowess on the battlefield is respected by legions of undead. As an action, you can assume command of a number of undead creatures from a willing summoner, or you can force any undead you can see within 30 feet of you to make a charisma saving throw against your spell save DC or fall under your command. If a creature succeeds on this saving throw, you can't use this feature on it again. If it fails, it falls under your command and obeys your orders for the next 24 hours. Intelligent undead are harder to control in this way. If the target has an intelligence of 8 or higher, it has advantage on the saving throw. If it fails the saving throw and it has an intelligence of 12 or higher, it can repeat the saving throw at the end of every hour until it succeeds or breaks free. Your undead legion can't have a cumulative challenge rating greater than your fighter level. So once you use this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a short or long rest. You know what? That reminded me of... there is a 2 books in a very cool series called I, Strahd, which is the diary of Strahd von Zarovich. It goes into when he was immortal and what happened to bring him to the point you meet him in Barovia. The second book has to deal with a the second book has to do with a lich and Strahd interacting with each other in a very interesting way. And then there's a crossover with Dragonlance where the Knight of the Black Rose, Lord Soth himself, finds himself in Barovia, and there's an interesting interaction between this Death Knight and Strahd von Zarovich as they play out their reputations and their presentations, and as well as testing out their power levels against each other. And by the way, so the whole thing about a willing summoner is that Oathbreaker paladins, or I guess you could just say paladins, because of the aura that you still get. You get a paladin aura as an Oathbreaker. Paladins make excellent necromancers, in so much that they are awesome to lead undead masses into battle because of their auras and the ability to, if you get the inspiring leader and you're giving a ton of temp hit points to this legion. So they're not the best at creating the undead, but if they're given the undead, they can lead them into just raffle stomping villages and countrysides and maybe even besieging castles and the like. So Grim Conscription is kind of a nod to that. So as a fighter, it's letting you dip into this as a fighter and not have to be a paladin. Although I'm curious. All right, Animate Dead is a 3rd level spell. Let me check that out real quick. Creates an undead servant. Choose a pile of bones or a corpse. Under your control for 24 hours. After which it stops obeying any command you've given it. This use of the spell reasserts your control over up to 4 creatures you have animated with this spell, rather than animating a new one. Okay, so you can slowly, over time, build and maintain an army. However, if you go into maybe more of a dedicated raising squad, it's easier to just assume the control of them. And how does that measure against... let's see, Battle Master... So they get 18th level superiority die increase. Survivor, Pinnacle of Resilience. At the start of each of your turns, you regain hit points equal to 5 plus your con mod if you don't have more than half. Oh, an auto regen. Okay, that's pretty good. for champion, and auto regen is nice. Especially if it's non-magical. That can be very interesting. And for Eldritch Knight, what is their kind of subclass capstone? Starting at 18th level, when you use your action to cast a spell, you can make one weapon attack as a bonus action. So their 18th level is kind of like what Valor Bards get early on. Because it's 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. I like it thematically. If I were to... I think I would share a concern. I wouldn't say a gripe. I would share a concern with the fact that you are a necromancer and you are expected to have a bunch of Skelebros with you. As long as you as the player are on, if you are on cue, you have everything is flowing smoothly, or if you trust your DM to just take control of them, and just sort of say, I want them to attack, and then the DM will just blow through the dice or whatever. As long as there's an efficient manner, I think that this could be a lot of fun. It's very thematic. I don't think it's necessarily over. Well, I don't know. I guess if you're bringing a horde of skeletons, it could be overpowering. But then again, they're all skeletons, and a turn undead, even from a friendly cleric, could just not even turn your skeletons, but destroy them outright. And that would be another concern. If you have a cleric or a paladin in your group, they would have to really watch out for their turn abilities. Unless it's a paladin of the ancients, because that's fiends or fae. In which case, you're doing pretty well, and oh my gosh. The aura on an ancient's paladin is resistant to magic damage. So all of your skeletons can be resistant to magic damage and have that nice swole pool of temporary hit points. And the turning won't hurt your Skelebros. Mortal Fingers, hey, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. All right, let's check out the Vigilante next. And if any of you have thoughts about the Bone Knight, throw them out there. Concerns, questions, like optimism, like, oh yeah, I totally run this and I think this is fine. Or, oh, you know what, if I mixed or matched this in a multi-class with an Oathbreaker Paladin, what if you went 50-50 or what, I don't know, 60-40 or whatever. What if you were an Oathbreaker Paladin and a Bone Knight at the same time through a multi-class? Yeah, Mortal, no problem. You're welcome here. I enjoyed meeting you over in Creature Carla's channel, and I really appreciate that you're taking the time to go and check out what I do when I broadcast. I don't have nearly as cool stuff that I'm drawing, but really my canvas is inside your brain. As we, in the workshop, we're telling stories, we're provoking imagination, we're doing thought experiments, and all this other fun stuff here. And I guess we get to take a look at other people's artwork. So, that's not terrible, huh? Alright, if you don't want to play a Bone Knight, the other subclass that this expansion offers is the Vigilante. For some, war is a battle between nations. To others, it is a quest for justice, something fought in the alleys and the wilds. As a Vigilante, you have a driving purpose. A battle you feel that only you can win. You may work to battle crime or expose corruption. You may be on the trail of a hidden cult manipulating the fate of nations. What defines the Vigilante is your absolute conviction, a willingness to give your all, burning your vital energy to sharpen your senses and push past any obstacle. You'll get the job done even if it kills you. Hey Technotron, welcome. So this is... This subclass is kind of like a Punisher, and it sounds like we're going to be able to burn into our hit dice, similar to a couple of the other subclass options, like the Barbarian before. But hey, the devil's in the details, and let's go devil hunting. When you choose this archetype at 3rd level, you gain proficiency in one of the following skills of your choice. Insight, investigation, or perception. I like it. You know, extra skills are handy. They empower the player. Tough as nails. When you choose this archetype at 3rd level, while you're not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your con modifier plus your proficiency bonus. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. Additionally, your hit point maximum increases by 3 and increases by 1 each time you take a level in this class. Ooh, wow. That's a very... I mean, when I say powerful, I'm not implying it's broken. That makes splashing this as a multi-class, I mean, let alone taking it straight up, but as a multi-class, you know, taking 3 levels in here, that's pretty good. It's giving you an unarmored defense equivalent that actually is probably better than unarmored defense for monks or barbarians, because it's not dependent on 2 stats that have to have your points dumped into it. Which, as a fighter, you're already getting a bunch of points anyway, because you get some extra ability score improvements. But you get that floating proficiency bonus. So it's slower, but it's automatic, and it allows you to do other stuff with those points. And you're probably going to have a big con mod anyway as a fighter, because especially as this vigilante, you're going to be up front and in people's faces. Additionally, your hit point maximum increases by 3. So at that level, and then by 1 each time you take a level in this class. And another 3rd level bonus, Vital Pursuits. Also a 3rd level, you can push beyond your physical and mental limits with sheer determination, enhancing your deductive and martial abilities for a short time at the cost of your own personal wellness. As a bonus action on your turn, you can expend 1 hit die to sharpen your attention. Alright, so this is like what the Barbarian was offering. And I think the Bard had something similar as well. As a bonus action on your turn, you can expend 1 hit die to sharpen your attention on the grandest of schemes or most vital details. As you enter this heightened state, before your concentration begins, roll the hit die and subtract the number from your hit point total. This damage can't be reduced in any way. While you concentrate, as if casting a spell, you gain the following benefits. So if you're hit, then, you know, it has that rider on there if it's as a spell. You gain a bonus to Wisdom, Intelligence, and Charisma ability checks and saving throws equal to your con mod. You gain a bonus to the damage you deal with your weapon attacks equal to your proficiency bonus. Whenever a creature makes a Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma ability check against you to uncover your presence or determine your purpose, you can use your reaction to impose disadvantage on it. These effects last for a number of minutes equal to the number you roll, and end early if you lose your concentration, become incapacitated, or you die. You have 2 uses of this feature, and you regain all expended uses of it when you finish a long rest. So for taking 1 to 10 points of damage, you get a selection of really good abilities. I think this is a very generous thing to offer at 3rd level. Because again, I mean, for one hit point, the possibility, it's a 10% chance. But again, if we want to stress test this, we lose 1 hit point, and we get a lot of really good results on it. Also, because it is not included in here, if I were to munchkin this, and the munchkin fallacy is I can because the rules don't say that I cannot. Let's say that I dipped into Sorcerer. I want to go Sorcerer Fighter. Sorcerers or wizards have D6 hit die. All this says is expend 1 hit die. So in this case, I could mitigate the possible 10 damage, or in this case 7, 8, 9, or 10 damage, if I burn a wizard or a sorcerer hit die if I'm multi-classing. So it might want to clarify that it must be a fighter hit die that you have to burn for this. Also, these entries so far that I have seen do not include a little blurb, and it might be later. It might be a catch-all later, but it doesn't have a blurb about multi-classing. Now, we made the presumption that the Bone Knight is a 1/3 caster like Eldritch Knight, and so it's going to have the same effect. But unless it's later, this document should include how to multi-class into this. Mortal fingers, you had busy fingers? Well, don't burn out the mortality in them. You can only wiggle your fingers so much in life. I think that this is a very powerful ability. And the fact that you're getting this tough as nails, bonus hit points, and this unarmored defense. I mean, the skill, This is a fun throw-in. I mean, this could be here or this could be removed, and I don't think it'll necessarily change that much. I mean, it's thematically in the idiom of a vigilante, and this is kind of what Trust the Flump was talking about. In Eberron, more people are more educated. There are more tool proficiencies, more skills, or more access to magic and knowledge and services. If you can't do it, someone probably more commonly can in Eberron than you can in Faerun or other locales. So, you know, this is reflective of an Eberron kind of the assumed power level of Eberron versus other campaign settings, and should be considered. That's right, Trustaflump is weakly wiggling his tentacles. They are all smart and stuff. I mean, considering that, you know, people are carrying wands as sort of personal firearms and, you know, for protection and all this other stuff, and just for, you know, holding someone up. You know, Batman can be born in the crime alley of Sharn, which is conveniently right by a really upscale theater. But Jack Napier, or whoever is currently thought to be the one that killed the parents of Bruce Wayne, you know, pulls out a wand and, you know, pew pew, magic missiles the parents down, leaving Bruce, because I guess only 2 magic missiles could shoot out, you know, leaving poor Bruce there to then become the vigilante of the vigilante here. 7th level, prepared for anything. At 7th level, you gain proficiency and 1 additional saving throw of your choice. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can choose to replace it with a different saving throw of your choice. That's pretty cool. Especially if you're taking those feats that make you resilient, you could be, whew. This is almost, again, these are supposed to mimic prestige classes from 3rd edition. This is almost like a barbarian monk fighter fusion. Vigilant Heart. At 10th level, you have advantage on Constitution saving throws that you make to maintain your concentration when you take damage. That could be really good if you're dipping into spellcasting classes, especially if you get it by 10th level. That allows for some still powerful spellcasting options, let alone having the effect of keeping up your vital pursuits. Tireless Pursuits. Starting at 15th level, your sharpened senses are available whenever battle starts. If you roll initiative and have no uses of vital pursuits remaining, you regain 1 use of it. So 15th level, kind of late in the game. It's a good utility, just in case. So I think they're weird. You know, Vigilant Heart, Tireless Pursuits are okay, but definitely Vital Pursuits and Prepared and Tough as Nails, Prepared for Anything. This is all very front-loaded power for this subclass. And by your epic level in 18th, or it's one of them, it starts at 17, Vigilant Opportunist. Starting at 18th level, you respond to danger with extraordinary vigilance. In combat, you get a special reaction that you can take once on every creature's turn except your turn. You can use this special reaction only to make an opportunity attack, and you can't use it on the same turn that you take your normal reaction. By epic level, is this... I mean, this is conditional. I don't have a problem with Vigilant Opportunist. Tireless Pursuits, Vigilant Heart. But, ooh, you get a fat, wonderful load of abilities at level 3 and at level 7. They have Spell Your Ground Laws and lacks Conceal and Carry for wands. Because wands don't kill people. That's right. Casters kill people. Wands don't kill people. Unless they're sentient wands. Which I guess that can always be an option. In which case, ooh. What an interesting legal system you'd have to have there, right? You, you know, as part of the evidence gathering, you have to cast detection and all this other, you know, the forensics. It'd be like, instead of measuring the bullet, you know, in the rifling and the powder marks and all this other stuff, or in Judge Dredd, how it takes like a DNA sample and puts a ring on the bullet and anyway, you know, you have to do forensics on a wand, and you have to sort of get its resonance, or you have to, you know, is it a cursed item? But of course, cursed items don't show up on identify spells. And so wouldn't that be sneaky that you have a serial killer who actually just distributes wands to other people and kills vicariously through them? You know, and you're sort of a thrill kill. Ooh, that could be a good adventure. The big bad evil guy is a serial killer and like will stalk people after they find the wand. Like he'll leave the wand in a back alleyway, you know, someplace where probably nefarious people go anyway. And you know, so they'll pick it up and like, oh, I got a wand, you know, like what people might do if they find a gun, loaded or otherwise. And then he follows them, and that's where this character gets his or her like joy, the perverse joy of watching other people die, as the cursed wand is suddenly sort of like gets these other people in trouble. And then of course, you know, if the police come by and pick up the wand, then another person can fall to the curse. And what if this person has several curses? You know, it's like constantly making these, and you know, it starts with one wand, then two, and then suddenly it just seems like random wand violence. You know, is it gang warfare because it starts out in the, you know, in sort of the back alleys, the you know, the ghetto areas, the low income, the developed, whatever, you know, whatever you want to conceptualize. And so people don't pay attention at first. They're like, oh, whatever. It's a bunch of gang members killing each other. And while they are human beings and we should care about human beings, you know, a common concept is let the trash take itself out. And, you know, especially if we're viewing this through the lens of a fantasy setting where we have a bunch of, you know, a bunch of people who are probably already gang members. In Ravnica, it's a bunch of goblins that find these cursed wands. And, you know, what do people care if goblins kill each other, right? However, once the police are involved, let's say a policeman, even a dedicated one, like a good cop who wants to do right, finds this wand and the curse is passed on. And suddenly, that could be a struggle with a PC. It could even be a vigilante like we're exploring up here. You know, what's going on with these wands? Because are they sentient, or is it just a curse? And why can't curses be detected? And blah, 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 blah. There you go. Everyone, look. You've come here for a workshop on Eberron, and you've walked out of here now with amazing adventure prompts for cursed wands and a growing escalation, as well as, what was our first one? As we were talking about clerics. Oh, shoot. It was an awesome prompt, and now I'm trying to remember it, and I totally forgot what we did at the beginning. That was its own unique, like, kind of interesting concept. Yeah, CSI Eberron. Yes, like CSI Sharn. You know, or different cities around Eberron. Without play testing this and testing the mechanics. Hey Josh, welcome back. I would say move either Vital Pursuits or Tough as Nails to 7th level. and then move Prepared for Anything to double up with Vigilant Heart. And I think that seems a little bit more spread out. Otherwise, this is just an amazing 3 levels of Fighter Vigilante as a dip in multi-class. This is banging. Oh my gosh, you get so much stuff. And especially if you take it at 7th, you know, the other stuff is okay, but honestly, why would you ever want to go higher than 7th level in this class? Except maybe 8, so you get your second ASI and then 12 levels into something else. Hey, Pindeth, yeah. Well, they don't even have to be mages. They could be common folk that use a wand. All right, so we went over the 2 fighter subclasses, Vigilante, which, you know, so that had my little qualm about the level 3 and possibly level 7. And then as for the Bone Knight, as this 1/3 caster alternative to Eldritch Knight, my only, I guess, kind of quibble, if I don't have a qualm, I have a quibble, might be that in the broad scheme of things, we're now playing Lagromancer from Diablo 2. And if you're going to do this as a DM, remember that this is giving effectively temporary hit points or more hit points, as Trustaflump pointed out. And this is also meaning that there's a lot more decisions that have to be made for roleplay and for encounters. And so a character like this could slow down the game. You have to be ready for that. And again, one way that, you know, you could propose at the table as a DM to say, well, sure, so these are kind of counting as extra hit points for you. I'll let you play a Bone Knight fighter, but you have to have an 8 or a 10 in Constitution. And that could even be reflective of, so you've made this pact, and that's why you rely on necromancy to steal hit points, or why you have all of these people that are expected to be at your side, these undead skeletons, to act as bone shields for you. I'd say meat shields, but come on. While I was gone, I realized that I've only properly played 2 classes using the abilities and such, and then there's 4 classes that I've played but never used the abilities of. Either never had the chance or just forgetting. Next character I make, I should play one of those classes I've never played or played improperly and try to do the class right with the abilities. That's an excellent personal challenge, Josh. Very positive thinking, and I would suggest you do so. All right, everyone, let's take a 10-minute break. Use the restroom, get a drink. You know, if you have a pet, give them some love. We'll come back in 10 minutes, and then it seems like we're going to go into the monk next. Here we go. So we'll talk about the monk as per the job. This is Final Fantasy. As per, you know, the class in the player's handbook, we'll compare it to the Eberron presentation, and then we'll see which subclass is offered.